Shambho Mahadev, Mahadev, Mahadev. So we are on the third shloka. We spoke about the vritti. In Chittam and Vritti, Chitta Vritti, the most important thing was discussed on Chitta and Mudra, Vichipta, Ekagrita, Niruddha. So these were discussed in the details. So in this basically one has to understand that as we said in the previous class, Vichiptata, Chiptata is the one which happens and Vichiptata is the one which is necessary. Where in order to do that we have to practice why this deviation in the physical environments takes place for the Chitta and Vritti to be different is because of the Dussangatvam. So we also said that the Adi Shankaracharya in his Bhajagovindam, he has specified on the Dussangatve, Satsangatvam, Satsangatve, Nissangatvam, Nissangatve, Nirmalatattvam. This principle has been enforced by Adi Shankaracharya, and it is very truly, ultimately, that Nirmalatattvam one has to reach through the Satsangatvam or Nissangatvam. Afterwards, after Satsanga, it becomes Nissangatvam. In Nissangatvam, absoluteness alone then goes to the Nirmalatattvam. So, Bhagavan Maharishi further says that the activities of mind in this Raja Yoga Sutras, Tata Drushtuhu Surupe Avasthanam. Tata Drushtuhu Surupe Avasthanam. At that time, when the thought waves are stilled, after the Nisangatvam, absolute Malatattvam, when the thought waves are stilled, the perceiver rests in his own true nature, is what he said. Tada drushtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Rest in his own self. That means when the agitation of the mind is stopped, when all other objective perception is stopped, then subjectively the experiencing of the objects subjectively is stopped, exhausts. So automatically what happened? The subtle form of the self is revealed. When the subtle form of the level is glimpsed, that state of pure consciousness is achieved. And when the pure consciousness is achieved, the path towards the union with the Parabrahman is cleared. So Bhagavan further says on this, Vritti Sarupya Mitaratra. Vritti Sarupya Mitaratra. When the mind is not concentrated, the perceiver identifies with the modifications, with its modifications. Vritti Sarupya itara atra. That means when the mind is not in the status of that absolute calmness, where there are no agitations, when he is not able to be within himself without any desires or without any attachment and attraction, then only the firmness of revelation of the highest consciousness or the higher consciousness is possible. If not, what happens is that this chitta vritti, in the vrittis, the desires and attachment and attraction will divert the attention of the mind, and then the superimposition of the desires, the superimposition of the reflection of the objective pleasures and experiences will be engraved, and automatically what happens? This allows the mind to go into the stable condition of the perceiver to be with the higher consciousness or into the layam. Layam is possible only when it is absolutely 100% of the same characteristics of the Brahman that we have discussed in the Upanishads also. So the desire of the perceiver or identifies with the modifications when the mind is. This happens when the regularity is not there. Meditative process. And through that is one is that regularity. Second is that the familiarity should not be there. It should be always that state of respectiveness should be there. Whatever close it may be, like Bhagavan's presence, however close it may be. I told you about some of the stories earlier, like that Dhyanam, great bhakt of Bhagavan Krishna, in the forest, because every day the Bhagavan in the form of small child comes and plays with him. These are Puranas. Just telling you an example. So he comes and plays with him. So whenever he does puja, he would take the prasadam and eat, and then he would play around. Things like that. See, one small mistake that one day. Even though he experiences every day, he quietly, because of his concentration, because of his dedication, because of his consciousness that he is Bhagavan, he had been respectful to Ishvara at all times. But what happens? One day, because this happens every day, and it happens every day, what happened? The familiarity has happened. That means the importance of Bhagavan is lost in his mind. The vritti started. So his puja, what is the puja done for? It is only for Bhagavan. Puja has become important than the Bhagavan. The action of the puja has become more important than the Bhagavan. So when he disturbed something of the puja material, Dhyanam with his hand, he said, "Hey, me, keep away, boy, keep away." He just pushed him aside. When he pushed him aside, then he said, "Now you have become too arrogant because of the familiarity. I am there with you throughout every day, so you have no importance of me. You listen every advice from me every day for anything and everything required, so you have no importance of me. At your beck and call, I am there. I come and play with you, I come and advise you, I come and dictate you, I come and do any time and every time, so you have no importance to me." Familiarity has come. Since the familiarity has come, now, if you want to see me, you have to come at such and such vana. You find out, I will not be visible to you, vanished. It took years and years, penance and penance, so much of suffering he has to undergo. Lots of suffering undergo. But even then, he could not personally see him, but he could reach the place where he has come. Now, my purpose of telling is that this, from the mind, that familiarity should go, because this usually happens for a person who gets this familiarity, the one who is giving importance to his desires, his moha, his attachment, and his attraction and attachment. He is the one who he thinks that it is familiar. In fact, in spirituality, each and every experience is now unfamiliar, it is new, and should be treated as that. Reverence and respect as always should be there. Every day you go to temple, ultimately what happens? It becomes a gossip center instead of prayer, because there is a group of people visiting at the same time to the temple. I have seen that. There is no bhakti there. What happened? Familiarity. Initial 1 or 2 days you go, you will go silently, pray and all that. After that it becomes routine. He knows that this is the time when the arati is done, this is the time when the door is open, and then just for some chanting of name takes place, and the prasadam is taken, and then gossip session goes on, whether it is anybody for that matter. So what happened? The kshetra darshanam, the process of, the principle of darshanam is no more there. The darshanam is lost because of the familiarity. Because every day I can come to temple, so there is no problem. People who come from far and then they visit only for 1 hour or 1 day, we go to many places, Tirthasthal, so maybe at that time you have little concentration. Because it is strange, there is no familiarity. You will not be able to come again. So probably you don't know how many years you will be able to come in your lifetime at all or not. So once only we visit that temple, so you will pray properly. So Bhagavan Maharshi says that familiar, one is that desires, objective pleasures, desire and agitations of the mind due to familiarity is also there. And the Dhyanam, idea, perception of the Dhyanam behind it, that why am I doing this meditation for? Why am I doing all these things meant for? What is the purpose behind it? The purpose behind it is not your personal derivation of satisfaction. It is meant for the completion of the karma, and to have an absolute substratum, of the self. You find out the absolute peace as a deep lake or a tank or a deep or an ocean or wherever it is. At the depth of it, that peace and stillness has to be revealed. In that stillness, you will find the path towards the highest consciousness, where there are no encumbrances, there are no attachments, there are no agitations, there are no familiarities, there are no unfamiliarities. At that point of time, you will be in a position to relate yourself to the highest consciousness, through which you will further travel through that highest consciousness, and then you go to the process of the layam, is the process. That is why he said, Vritti sarupyam itaratra. Sarupyam. Sarupya is that? Similarity. Sarupyam. No, it's easily available. Sarupa. Everything is like me only. It's approachable to me. It is available to me. Sarupyam. Virupa is that which is distorted, is Virupa. Sarupam is Sarupam, is that which is easily available. So Sarupam itara atra. That's why those things will obstruct you from reaching the highest consciousness. I thought that waves will come. The tendency to identify with them will take place, and he starts thinking about the benefits that you are going to derive out of it. Swamiji here gives an example. What is the real difference between the hotel lobby and one's own living room? There is none, for the mind is a slave to its preoccupations, identifying with the same problems wherever it is. One vritti gives rise to countless others, all in search of happiness, but in fact, it's only foolishness, for every rising of the thoughts themselves destroy the peace the mind craves. It's only when the thoughts are stilled in the concentration that identification with agitation and desires are eliminated. So there's no importance whether you are in the very important temple or whether you are under the tree, that temple, or you are in your house, or you are meditating or not meditating, you are meditating for 2 hours. We have already explained all this. What happens if the mind is somewhere, if the mind is here and there, whatever you do is of no use. They will get entangled into this multiplicities of the thoughts with these and get entangled into the lower consciousness deeper and deeper without allowing you to reach the stillness of the subtle of yourself. Vrittayah panchadaryah klishtaha. There are 5 types of thought waves, some of which are painful and some are not. Learning may be both enjoyable and painful for the student. He wants the knowledge, yet he wants to escape. The mind plays a tug of war. The painful thoughts are eliminated when the eternal conflict ceases through concentration of the mind. Here, concentration of the mind in the sense, we told you that how it is elimination of that superimpositions in the mind is called concentration of the mind. Meditation is predicted on a gathered state of mind. Composed mind, gathered state in the sense composed mind. A composed mind in the sense, as I told you, chiptaha is that various number of rays diverging it into various activities, whereas when that chiptaha or chiptam, when it is assembled together, when you find that they are all imaginary fields, there is nothing, it's all illusion, that's all. It is something like the mirage, we are trying to catch the mirage, something like that. So this is what happens when the chiptaha is there. Same with the mind, concentration of the mind means without any of these things. Vrittaya panchatas kliptaha. Yeah. So what happens? These thoughts which are there because of the diversification or the diversities of the mind attending various pains and pleasures. As I told you, there will be mostly pains are there, and the next moment my mind is trying to transform the pains into pleasures, constantly occupied into transformation of the pains and pleasure without you being available for enjoy the pleasure. The painful thoughts are eliminated when the internal conflict ceases. Why the pains are there? Identity of the mind, identity of the pain is done by the mind on various objective experiences based on your own, one's own suitability, one's own, that's very temporary, this pain and pleasure. That's why it doesn't have a true demarcation, what is the pain and pleasure. See, that's why he said that it's because of the conflict. When the conflict ceases, it's a conflict in the mind, that whether it is pain and pleasure, pain and pleasure and pain and pleasure. Now this conflict, the agitation of the mind has to stop. When will the agitation of the mind stop? When the desire for the pleasure and pain stops. Then only this will stop. When he wants to convert the pain into pleasure, stops. The desire for converting the pain into pleasure, that stops. Identities of the pain and pleasure is the prime normal mind's activity. This identifying the pain and pleasure has to be stopped. Everything should be same. There is neither pleasure nor pain. The pain is that it is not opposite to pleasure. They are two different things. They are not opposite. Pleasure is that one who wants to derive egoistic satisfaction is called pleasure. The next is, as I tell, it's not an opposite thing. Another is the pain is that the egoistic mind wants to enjoy the pleasure of pain is called pain. If the mind doesn't want the pain, it will not be there. Both are the enjoyments wanted by the ego center. Pain also wanted by the enjoyment. Pain is the one which is enjoyed by the ego. Is why one gets pain. One identifies it as pain. If one is identifying something as a pleasure, it is that mind which is identifying something as a pain. As he rightly said, the student wants to acquire knowledge, then he goes to study. One wants to understand the Upanishadic and Vedic principles, one goes to study, but is not interested. It is very painful. What is that pain? The subject is same, object is same. Where is the pain and pleasure comes? But the mind wants to understand the Upanishad. Mind wants to learn the Upanishad. So what happens? What we say? I have taken all the pains to go through the studies. What I say? This is not an enjoyment of ego. I have gone through the pains of earning money and it is being spent like this. I have gone through the pains of learning such and such thing. I cannot waste it like that. This is how we talk. What have you done? You have gone through the pains. That means it was a choice of yours to do. You took the studies as pain. You took the earning as pain. You took this as pain, that as pain. What is that? That's a pleasure of ego. That's why you say, I took all the pains. If you have taken pains, you would not have been here. You should have been collapsed. If you have taken all the pains, it should have been painful. Simple equation. Primary school education. If you have taken pains, the pains should have been there with you. But there is knowledge in you. Because you have taken pains to study, so you have knowledge in you, contradictory. No? If you have taken pains to earn, the earning should have been the pain. So simple. Earning should have been pain, but earning is pleasure. What is pain then? There's no pain. Is there pain? What is that? Chitta vritti. It is that vritti. Identification. Because of identities. It was not very pleasant for you to undergo that. It's only a process of somehow or other getting it. Once you got it, then it becomes a pleasure. But what happens? That is through the pain. That means, so what should we derive at? That means through the pain you get pleasure. So if you are getting pleasure through the pain, you should get pain through the pleasure. If you are getting pleasure through the pain, you should get pain through the pleasure. If that's a principle, no. If that is the status, no, it is not like that, no. So egoistic approach of that. It's only a satisfaction of the ego based on the agitation of the mind because of the disruption and indecisiveness of the chitta or the vritti, that means the waveform on your mind. That's the reason. Why it is happening? Because of ignorance, because of avidya, because of ajnanam. A jnani would not think like that. A jnani would not think to study Upanishadic or Vedic studies or Shastras as a pain. He would like to enjoy it. But others would like to just, because it's an endless study. It's experience, it is not the study. So what happens is that if we just read or we write or we do something, we will commit thousands of mistakes. Because this Vedanta, especially, that principle of Veda, as I told you, though, it has to be slowly and slowly seeping from that, like the sack of sugar in the wet, in the rain. It has to be slowly, seeping. That means a personal experience has to be there. If there is no personal experience, if there is no absolute experience through the highest consciousness, you cannot identify the higher consciousness through the lower consciousness. Through the lower mind, the higher mind cannot be understood. So if you are trying to explain through your imaginary world of knowledge in the lower consciousness, what will happen? It will only remain as an imagined incorrectness. There won't be right, there won't be correctness in this. It will be incorrect because it is being explained by the lower consciousness. There may not be any truth in it. There is only words will be, shabdartham will be there. Shabdartham will not bring knowledge. Experience only will bring knowledge. It has to be seeped into you through the Upanishadic words should be as that, kept and slowly melting and seeping into your system. The whole system should feel that. It's not that. It's not through indriyas, through the mana, through the particular organ of the body or through the memories. No. Nothing like that. It is not a history to just learn and see, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. Where there are no changes can be done. History, you cannot make any changes. What has happened, it is written. You have studied it. Fine, no problem. Vedanta is not like that. Vedanta, you get the initial knowledge and the descriptions and the imparting from the Guru, it takes place. Then in your mind it should seep in personal, absolute faith and absolute dependency, absolute samarpana bhava when it happens. Each and every word, each and comma and full stop has to go in and then experience them and then has to reveal through the higher consciousness. It has to be revealed through the higher consciousness. Initially it is not possible because it's only all studies through the lower consciousness. In lower consciousness there are, I told you already how in our Chandogya Upanishad also we have explained about how from the lower consciousness we travel to the higher consciousness. That principle has to be followed still. One has to follow that and then reach that status of the witnessing the higher consciousness initially and then the layam into higher consciousness. And from that consciousness only the true knowledge can be revealed. Knowledge, that experimental, that experienced knowledge can be revealed only at the higher consciousness. Other things what we will express or we will listen or we will understand will all be not right. So it has to be absolutely gathered, because why it should be right? It has to be right, then only the layam can take place, otherwise it is not. Not only that, the misconception can take to destructions also. Because mind, the vritti of the mind, number of waves, if that is not proper, if it is not right in the process that is going, it can create the opposite reaction, which can create destructions. That's how many of them, even after studying the Vedanta, they misinterpret them. People have misinterpreted. Some of the Westerners earlier have misinterpreted Veda and Vedanta. What happened? Destruction has taken place to them because of non-understanding of that. That's why these small articles and small things published by, there are so many people publishing so many things which should not be taken into confidence completely, because as the Shastra said, this should be the personal experience. Meditation is predicated on a gathered state of mind. If this could be maintained at all times, one would be continually resting in happiness. How to identify, is that what he's talking about? How to identify my perception level is right or wrong? The Vedanta should give pleasure, happiness, constantly. In the temples, normally what happens? The idols are made, and the idols are decorated, idols are made always with a smiling face. The principle of smile is that a permanent smile fixed on them. There are songs like that. There's a permanent smile fixed on his face. It's not an intentional smile created by the individual. When the happiness happens, so automatically there is a smile on the lips. It's only personal, physical expression I am talking about. It's not that it should be there. I'm just comparing it for an example, for the purpose of example. So when he said about one would be continually in happiness, he said. When it is continually happiness in the sense, one has a permanent smile. One has a permanent happiness when the Vedanta principles, Vedic principles, Upanishadic principles seep into his knowledge. There's contentment in him. When there is contentment, then only the peace can take place. That's called peace. When contentment is, what is peace? Peace is that contentment. Contentment is called peace, in the other words. When it is contented, everything is there, sufficient, contented. Nothing more to content, is contented. That contentment is there automatically. What happens? In the chittam, in the intellectual center, there will be permanent happiness. There are no agitations. What is permanent happiness? Permanent happiness is not an emotion as we have happiness as an emotion in materialistic way. Permanent happiness in the intellect, antakarna, is that a feeling of experiencing that is not expressed, that cannot be expressed. There are no reasons for it, there is no logic behind it, there is no rationalization behind it. Nothing is there. Akaranam is called the permanent happiness. So that permanent happiness only is called the witnessing the higher consciousness, or Satchibhava of the highest consciousness, or it is called also the Sakshatkaram of Brahman. Pramana Viparya Vikalpa Nidra Smudaya. Correct knowledge will bring painless experience. Pramanam. Pramanam is that why it is known as Pramana. Earlier, I think in Chandogya Upanishad, I have explained about this. There are various kinds of experiences and meditations. In that I have explained in Chandogya Upanishad, Pramanam. What is Pramanam? Pramanam is that which is a fact, which is inscribed by experiencing by a person, by whoever it is, by one experiencing it with the full conviction and experience. When it is written, it is called Pramanam. Even for the materialistic way of Pramanam, it is there. That is why in the transaction of property, etc., we got Pramana Patram. It's a Pramana Patram. What is a Pramanam? That I have witnessed it, I am sure that this particular property is existing, and this property I would like to transfer it to so and so, because there is no deviation. That Pramanam is that it's a complete proof. There is no lie in that, there is no untruth in that, because it's already existing. If you want, you can see. It's called Pramanam. Pramanam is that there is that thing is existing there. It's called Pramanam. So, Pramana, Viparya Vikalpam Idra Smrutaya. He has divided them into 5. Pramanam, then Viparyaya, Vikalpaya, Nidra, Smritya. Correct knowledge with the Pramanam. What is a Pramanam? There is a great explanation on Pramanam. It's not as simple as that in the spirituality. It's the only kind of mental modification. It is beneficial. Correct knowledge brings painless experience. The correct knowledge, what is that correct knowledge? How do you derive the correct knowledge? The correct knowledge is that it has got a lot of principles. This is what we had been learning for so many years to reach the status of the correct knowledge. Initially, removing the egos from the self by doing the samarpanam, by upasana, nididhyasana and things like that. Then what happens? The reflexes created by the results, indriyas and the mana is eliminated, and the ego is eliminated. The untruth that has been created for the purpose, by the purpose of karma bhala in our previous life and the present life is identified and is eliminated from the egoism, and in order to experience and expect, this has been removed from the egoism, and then he, after removing all that, then he experiences, as I told in the Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, he experiences when he listens to the Guru, he, without even talking, he experiences the knowledge through the nididhyasana, and when he through nididhyasana he experiences the knowledge that is being transmitted to him, that is being imparted to him. The perception takes place in absolute condition, absolute perfectness. Then he experiences that experienced knowledge is known as the correct knowledge. Not that what you have written, that what you have heard, that what you have thought, that what you have by-hearted, that what you have studied, or through the Shabdartha is not the correct knowledge, because it's only emotionally, because these are all knowledge. What happens in us, we all collect these things are through emotional attachment, that's all. Through an emotional attachment, a Shabdartha is taken will be only an emotion, not knowledge. Through an emotion, if you listen Vedanta, Vedanta is not Vedanta. That what you have listened is only a product of emotion, that's all. A result of emotion, not Vedanta. That's why preparedness is very necessary. Brahmacharis are supposed to be the ones who are listening the knowledge. That brahmacharyatam is necessary. In the mind there should be brahmacharyatam. An absolute brahmacharyatam. That only will bring the true knowledge. Otherwise it will be a mixture of emotion and ego. It will not give you a clear picture of the right knowledge or the right Dhyanam. It will not give. Never. It will always be with the ideas of the rationalization and imagination and expectation, of course, because that is what the human mind and the indriyas and the desires will approve of. Therefore, it is not considered as the correct knowledge. That's why we are not in a position to utilize the knowledge of the Vedanta in our regular life. Common people, a brahmachari would use it, as in Chandogya Upanishad said. It's only after the studies the brahmachari takes the grahastha ashram so that he can perfectly maintain it. He only can identify the true knowledge of it. So, in order to perceive this, that's why he said pramana viparyaya. Various kinds of activities takes place. How will you identify them? How will you understand them? In Vedanta there is no paryaya, there is no viparyaya. There are not many things. Vedanta is only one truth, Brahman alone. That identification, because every knowledge is concentrated on that. There is light here. The light is spread in all the corners. In order to understand it is coming from that light, if I look there, how can I understand it is from this light? If I look there, how can I understand which is light? If I look somewhere else, how do I understand which is light? When I look at the light, I understand it is light, and this is the one which is providing the light everywhere. Correct knowledge. When there is distortion of thoughts, vikalpa, and the viparyaya, that means various activities are happening, various things. We are looking at the object where the light is falling and we say there is light. We are not looking at the light and saying that there is light. We are looking at the prakash here and saying that there is light. It has got a distorted version of the knowledge now. It is not truth. It is untruth when you explain this is light. Well, one has to go in deeper understanding of that, then only one can really perceive it, otherwise it's difficult. Then what is this? What I am seeing here, is it not light? What did you understand? What is here? Is it not light? Is it light? Is it light? It's not light in proper sense. Because the light that has been travelled from the point of light, which is emitting, when it is falling on an object, you are seeing an object, you are calling it as light. Well, there is no object here in between, but I am seeing the light. There is space here, there is dust here, there is a film of dust here on which the light is falling, so you are seeing the light. If nothing is there in the atmosphere, you will not see the light. There has to be a medium to transport light from there to here. There has to be a medium. In that medium only the light travelled from molecule to molecule and then travelled here. So light is falling on the molecule and you are seeing the reflection of the light in the molecule. You are saying that is light. Just analyzing things. So what happens? This is the perception. If that is the perception, it's an objective perception which will be incorrect. Is it light? Can this produce light? That produces light. That which produces light, that is light. The source of light. Other is all object. This is called subjective perception and objective perception. The truth and untruth, even though in light I am seeing, I am experiencing the light. Through this, that's a different thing. It's all explanations done. Viparya, Vikalpa. Kalpa and Vikalpa, we have explained earlier also. What is Vikalpa? Nidra and Smritya. Nidra we know. In deep sleep, we don't understand anything. Smriti, Smritya, Smriti. These are the five. These are the five thought forms which creates in the mind and obstructs the correct knowledge, bringing them. And through the pramana only, these things can be identified. In order to identify the pramana, there has to be a witness for it. Pramanam has to be, suppose the registrar has not seen the property. Registering there, no? In the registration office, he has not seen the property. Then who has seen it? There is a document, pramanam is there, on the stamp paper. Some authority has signed it. Who has seen it? I have witnessed it is there and things like that. So many things are written there. He has signed it, there is a pramana. And the registrar has to believe it. That pramanam cannot be just rejected. Can he reject? That what is written in a stamp paper and signed, documented properly by an authority 50 years ago, 100 years ago, young man is a registrar, his age itself is 30. This document is 50 years old. Can he say that, oh no, I have not seen it, or I was not born at that time, I will not register the property? Can he say that? What he has to do? He has to believe this pramanam. Same way. For a student, for a disciple, from time to time, he has to believe the pramanam explained by the Guru to him. Because he has seen it. He is certifying it. It is there. He has to accept it as a register. It's a pramanam, the mind. It's a big chapter actually, pramanam, as I told you. It has to have a lot of faith in that, because there is a document, piece of paper, he can say that it is based on this. Whereas in a student, in a disciple who has got the faith and have surrendered, he has to have absolute faith on that, in the pramanam that is being told, because he is the one who has witnessed it. You cannot imagine and you cannot modify it. You cannot write down according to your own whims and fancies. You cannot change it. You cannot put your emotions and thoughts into that. No modification to that. No. It has to be accepted as it is. Is it not pramanam? Pramanam has to be accepted as it is. 2 meters from the roadside, south, east, the so many, at such and such angle, the area is such and such. One has to believe it. That's pramanam. Same way, it has to be believed because he has seen it. The one who is imparting the knowledge to you, he has seen it, you have to believe. As a person believing that pramanam in the stamp paper, the disciple has to totally believe it without any question. That way, in the vritti, there should be no questioning. In pramanam, there is no questioning there. You cannot put your emotions and your thoughts and your intelligence and your expectations on the pramanam. Pramanam, if it is written X, it is X. It is not multiplied by. No, it is X. Both are looking same. Why not I multiplied by such and such? No, it is X. It is written like this. When the Guru says it is X, it is X. It is not multiplication sign. Because you do not know it. Why should I believe it? Because you don't know it. Pramana is that. See? Because that which is expressed, the Maharishis and Tapasvis have written the Vedas. Prajnanam Brahma. Should I believe it or not? How to believe it? Who has written it? Have you seen? Do we ask that? No. Mahavakyam. Prajnana Brahma, Prajnana Brahma is Mahavakyam. Has to be unconditionally, without any question, without any doubt, without any emotion, without any ego, without any other pramana. Has to be attached and attracted, is perceived, not understood. Don't try to understand. I always say that. So these are the five. So Pratyakshanumana pramanani. The first thing is that he is explaining about the Pratyakshanumana. Correct knowledge based on the fact, is called correct knowledge, can be proved in any of the three ways. But none of the proofs may contradict any other. The first is direct perception. Either you have to perceive it directly. One. So many Maharishis, Tapasvis, Jnanis go into tapasya from the small age and he has perceived it directly. So that is the truth. That's correct knowledge. Perceive it, the first direct perception in which knowledge is experienced directly through the senses. This is acceptable only if the senses are pure and not deluded, and if one perception of the experience does not differ from the other. There are conditions in that. That's why they go to Himalayas and sit there at the young age. In that, what happened in the perception, there should not be, as I told you, right now only I told you. You may perceive things, you may understand things, but what happens with the emotions? Here he says that in which the knowledge is experienced only through the senses. It is acceptable only if the senses are pure and not deluded. If the senses are not pure and deluded, then the perception is also wrong. So the acceptability of the direct perception, what we call it as direct perception, it is only perceived only through the experiences, through the senses which are pure and not deluded. And if one perception of the experience does not differ from the other, the experience should be smooth and experiencing in a link. The link should be proper. If there are contradictions in my experiencing, that means my senses are not pure. Sometimes I see this, sometimes I see this contradicting, or sometimes these questions are there, no? Which is agitating the mind instead of making it peaceful. That means the senses are impure. So, in order to have direct perception, that's why we study all these things. I had always told you that, no? That samarpana bhava means what? That purity of the senses will take place. Absolute purity. It should not have any hold up in the senses. In senses, the egoistic hold up is there. I am so and so, I am such and such, I am this, I am that, I am that. Then what happens? There is no place for purity to take place. It has to be washed off. Whatever is there in existing there has to be released because they are all maligning you. That is why you got a janma, first of all. How to know it is malign? My senses are pure, I would say. How do you know it is impure? You have taken a birth, that itself shows that it's impure. No other pramana is required for that. It's impure. That's why it is born. So these senses have to be purified. It has to be cleansed. Then only your direct perception will be perfect. Then only it will be correct knowledge. Just by listening and Vakyartha you understand, you try to perceive it like that, it would be correct knowledge. So Maharishi says that, and experiences that, and also from one to the other there should be continuity and linking should be there. There should not be any contradictory experiences that is happening to the mind. Then also you can understand that the senses are impure. So through the pure senses only the direct perception is possible. That's why they take so many years in order to achieve the results of meditation, the Maharishis and Tapasvis. Because alone they sit and constantly connect themselves to the higher consciousness, highest consciousness. They keep on trying. Whatever impurities are there in them gradually burns off, because there are no more. Informations are fed to the senses through the impurities, external or internal. He is not witnessing anything, he is not seeing anything, he is not understanding anything. So what happened? The senses become pure. Yeah. In the normal course of people, what happened? They are always, as I told some time back, they are always in touch with impurities. They are always in touch with various activities in the life. They are always busy with understanding and struggling and taking care of things which are against the principles of the reaching the higher consciousness. This trouble, this problem, that problem, this, that. So the mind is fully occupied in that attachment, attraction, desire, expectation, and all these things. The mind is fully occupied. The vrittis are full in the mind. The waves, any waves passing through, even if Bhagavan passes through, he has to pass through that emotions and then go to the mind. Because anything that is passing through has to be through those waves only, because those waves are constantly there, thick and formed. Now, you have a distorted form of version of the Bhagavan also. That is why people are fighting about God. We are seeing that. Why? Vritti, because of that. Because they are various, this is Allah, this is Jesus Christ, this is Bhagavan Krishna, this is Bhagavan Shiva. Even in that, Bhagavan, there are bifurcations. Thousands of bifurcations in understanding Ishvara himself. And everywhere it is told, Brahman is one, that highest consciousness. Everybody knows that. But he says the one which is right is what I am thinking is the one. The problem. So each individual has that, each Ishvara. No problem. Each individual can have individual Ishvara, no problem. But it should not be contradicting with other Ishvaras. Each one have their own, no problem. Now what happened? In the perception, the vritti is there. In that vritti, the experiencing there, I identify one man, other from the other. One object, other from the other. Universal thinking is not there. It is personified as the absolute egoistic and emotional and thinking that takes place and thoughts that takes place. These thoughts form creates the thick layer of vrittis in us, and anything that is experienced, anything that is seen will be through that. See, it's difficult to understand, I know, for the people who are in the normal course of life. It is difficult, even educated people. Okay, Vakyartham can be understood, but perceiving this idea into self and seeping it into is not easy. Simple thing to understand. Suppose the hands are dirty. You bring white clothes, blue clothes, yellow or any different color or any other object, any material, anything. With this dirty hand, with this hand which is dirty, if you touch any of the objects, all will become dirty, the same dirt. Or is it there because the object is pure? Ganesha's murti, if I touch with dirty hand, Will it be remaining clean? It will be dirty only. So, the quality of yours is not depending upon the object. The quality of your perception on cleanliness and things like that is based on your own selves. If the thought is dirty, the result is dirty. So in that vritti, what happened? This purification, that is why the Maharshi wants to clarify that the senses have to be absolutely clear. Then only the perception can be clear. Otherwise, there cannot be a direct experience of the Brahman, Brahma Tattva. Whatever you study, whatever you by heart, whatever you read, whatever you think, no, it's not possible, because you are already preoccupied with those vrittis of inordinate understanding. It is not possible to penetrate that because you have got a firm conviction of that. This is what is truth. My attachment, my attraction, my desire, my dependency, my this thing is absolutely. Over and above that, if something is there, I can understand. But you will understand over and above, you will understand anything only through this. Because he has already occupied that space in the beginning. So anything that penetrates into you will only through you. That's why we don't understand many things. Because we try to understand through our intelligence and emotions. And those intelligence and emotions are obstacles to the spiritual development and understanding of the highest consciousness, because highest consciousness cannot be understood through intelligence. That's why you found in our Puranas, we know a lot of people like stories of Tenali Rama, Kalidasa, this and all that. All are were Moodha Buddhis, they said. They classified them as Moodhas. Why did they get the knowledge like that? How did they get the knowledge? The others who are claimed to be Panditas, they did not have any knowledge, but these have got just like that. Why? Their senses were absolutely pure in order to have the personal experience, perception of that highest consciousness when it was present, and then gave the blessings to them. When the blessings was given by the goddess or god, whatever story they says, when it happened, in him there were no inhibitions, there were no imaginations, there were no desires, there was no attachment, nothing was there. Absolute innocence was there in them. They are the ones who got the absolute knowledge in them, you see. Same way. So what happens? The intelligence and other things are required only for materialistic way of living, and then certain experiencing of the experimental experiences. That's why these perceptions are there. But here we are talking about the absoluteness of the spirituality through meditative process is what we are talking about. We are not talking about anything else. So in order to achieve that highest consciousness through meditative process, the requirement, he said in short, that the senses should be absolutely pure, so that the egoistic accumulation, emotional accumulation of perceiving capacity should not be obstructed, so that your intellectual center, mind, mana, antakarana and the jivatma and the paramatma should have only one principle of thinking. That's all. Nothing else should prevent in getting into it is what? The principle being. That's why he also specified that one perception experience should not differ from the other one. Now I saw this, now I am seeing something else, means that cannot. Why? Because the truth can be only one. If the mind is seeing the truth in two different ways, that means my vritti is not clear. is number one. Then the second proof, inference is based on reasoning. There may be no physical perception of truth, but it is arrived at through logic and past experiences. Drawing and inference, there also, in order to have the drawing and inference, there has to be faith, there has to be belief, there has to be faith, vishwasam. Absolute dependency should be there. Guru said there is Brahman, so there is Brahman. That's all. There is no second question. So to draw an inference, how to identify the Brahman? Like this, like this, like this, like this. What we have experienced. This is how you can understand that there is Brahman. It's called through the inference you can identify the Brahman. Similarity, we cannot see the Brahman because Brahman is inexplainable, invisible. So what happens? We have to draw an inference through that. So you have to see the reflection of the Brahman, like in Maharishis and Gurus. You have to see the reflection of the Brahman and try to understand. That will be the principle of Brahman. So it's called through the inference, second one. The third one, he says, the third proof, competent testimony is knowledge given by a person of unimpeachable character. He has had direct experience himself. His words do not contradict the scriptures. His motives are pure. The knowledge he gives is of benefit to the mankind, and his experience must be such that it agrees with men of wisdom. The truth is one. All proofs of correct knowledge arrive at the same conclusion. The true Guru, who has witnessed the Brahman, is an unimpeachable character. He has direct experience himself. Brahma Sakshatkari can only, I always tell this, can only explain the Brahman. So that's what he says. His words do not contradict the scriptures from the Vedas and Upanishad. His words will not contradict that. It will be only complementary to that. Any example told. These are all the symptoms that you have to see. Who is that person? His direct experience and his words do not contradict the scriptures. His motives are pure. He has no different motive. He has no motive of misleading any people or assembling people or getting a crowd for his talk and attraction or fame, looking for any benefit derived, personal benefits, something like that. So his motive should be pure. Motive should be to impart the knowledge. Whoever gets it, let them get it. I will keep imparting the knowledge. Somebody gets it right, they get it right. If they get it wrong, they get it wrong. Whether you are getting it right or wrong will be depending upon your vritti. Because transmission is done always. So the intention, motive should be pure. Knowledge he gives is of benefit to mankind. Should be the benefit to mankind, naturally. This is for upliftment of a human, not to have Brahma Sakshatkara. His experience must be such that it agrees with the men of wisdom. His own experience should be such that it should be same, it should agrees with the men of wisdom, that means great people of Rishis and Tapasvis. Truth is one. All proofs of correct knowledge arrive at the same conclusion. So the correct knowledge can be achieved through these three processes. Whichever is possible, one should attain. So we have difficulties also understood in that. Then Bhagavan's Maharishi says in the 8th Sutra, Viparyayo Mathya Jnana Matadrupa Pratishtham. Viparyayo Mithya Jnana Matadrupa Pratishtham. tat rupa pratishta. The erroneous understanding is a false conception of an idea or an object whose real nature does not conform to that concept. This is what I told you some time back. Viparya, erroneous understanding. Vedanta, I am talking about Vedanta, I am teaching, or I am preaching, or I am reading the Vedanta. I am reading the principle of Vedanta. I am reading the principle of Upanishad. Erroneous understanding of false. A person who understands it has to understand it as I am thinking, not I am reading. The words are same. With what feeling I am expressing, with what knowledge I am expressing. When I say erroneous, that is called false understanding. What do I mean by false understanding should be understood by a disciple just like that, when it is transmission is done. It's not through Vakyartham. What is erroneous understanding? Everybody has got their own opinion. What is erroneous? An error in understanding is erroneous understanding. That's it. That itself shows. In understanding there is an error, so which leads to false conception of idea. But the one who is understanding, he is not understanding that it is a false conception. He says that I have understood properly. This is what you spoke. Everybody says 100 people are there, 100 expressed them in 100 ways, and everyone said this is what you spoke. Everyone had understood the Shabdartha, what he spoke. Nobody understood what he spoke. They understood his Shabdartha, what he spoke. That's why what happened, this is what I told you in the previous chapter, previous stanza. I explained this, that even though I am speaking this, you understand it differently. How is it possible? I am speaking something and you are understanding something else? It's because of what? Impurities of your senses. Impure senses in you. Your vritti is not clear. Your vritti is with the attachment, attraction, moha, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. When the vritti is with that kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, automatically what is called erroneous understanding takes place. An error in understanding which leads to false conception of the ideas. He doesn't understand it is false. As I told you, he says you spoke. Yes, I spoke. But what I spoke? An error in understanding has taken place. Where? Viparyo mithya jnanam. Understood. The jnanam that is to be said. When I told the senses should be pure, what are the senses now? What are the senses? There are 5 senses. Which are the senses?
Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting.
Which are the senses? See, where are we? Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Rupa, Gantha are 5 senses. Shabda, Sparsha, Rasa, Rupa, Gandham should be absolutely pure. 5 senses should be pure. In that everything will come. The eyes will come, nose will come, ear will come. They are all physical organs of these principles of the senses. They are not senses. Ear is not a sense. Eye is not a sense. Eye is an instrument to sense the seeing Rupam. Ear is an instrument to understand the Shabda. Instrument is different. That's why it is Bhakhyendriyas, they called it. The Chendriyas, they said. One is Bhakhyendriyas, one is Antarendriyas. Well, so depending upon a person's mood, we call it in normal language. Suppose one is not comfortable, one is worried, one is sad. When one is sad, when he listens to Vedanta, he will listen through that emotion. Everything will be frustrating. So many details. Somebody told me, when somebody was discussing, they said, Buddhism is very simple. In this, your Hinduism, lot of study, so many books are there, so many Upanishads are there, so many principles are there, so many things have to be done. Whereas in Buddhism, it's nothing. It's very simple. Few words. Easy to understand is what was his opinion about it. In Buddhism, what happened? It's mostly they followed the Karma Yoga, mostly, to renunciation of everything. Take sannyasa, in sannyasa, vichayajana. In order to survive yourself, take vichya. Love everybody, shanti, no attachment, no principle. They just listen to that, but they are all based on the principles of everything. Again, we are going into details. Even to have that sannyasa, of whether he's a Buddhist sannyasi or whether he's a Muslim, what do you call it? Peer, a peer, or a saint of a Christian, or a Maharishi, or a Brahmachari, or whoever it is. Basic thing, Shastra is saying that in order to perceive that, not to have an erroneous understanding and a false conception of an idea, your senses should be pure. Let it be anybody for that matter, whichever it is. People do not want to, that's what I told you, this one also told the previous stanza. They don't want to study, they don't want to go under the experience of the absolute Dhyanam, because mind is very complicated. There are thousands of thoughts, thousands of experiences, thousands of understandings, thousands of deviations and bifurcations. We ourselves change our own statements 1,000 times. In every moment we change that. Now I say this is right. Next moment I say no, that is not right, this is right. Then after some time they say no, both of them are not right, this is right. We easily change it. Thousands of changes that takes place. All these changes are recorded in the mind. It is recorded as an experience. Now what happens when the 20th thing happens? When 20th thing happens, as I told you, a dirty hand, whenever it touches anything, it becomes dirty. It is not because of the responsibility of the object, it is because of the responsibility of the subject, which is dirty hand. Same way, when I am having the vritti in my mind of that particular nature and particular thing, we always think through that. You cannot avoid it because there is an emotion involved in it. In us we have got kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. All these emotions or any of them are prominent. Whenever I am thinking anything, I will always add that emotion to that. A person who is anger is that, krodham is there. He will always add krodham in every subject, not only in a particular subject. In every subject you will find there is an approach where one can get angry, where one can get desire, where one can get jealous. You will find in every description they will add somewhere or other, they will land up with jealousy. Somewhere or other they will land up with the desire. Somewhere or other they will land up with the attachment, depending upon the prominence of the emotion. Every thought, even if you are drinking a glass of water, angry person will drink the water angrily. Jealous person will always drink water with jealousy. It's not appeared externally, it's not visible to any person. But what happened? It is there. In the characteristic, it is there. When that is there in the characteristics, anything that is thought has to be like that. So is what I am saying. So let it be any sannyasi, or let it be any brahmachari, let it be any principle or any discipline they are functioning, they are all based on that viparyo mithya jnanam. Unless the senses are absolutely pure and purified, what they call it as what is that renunciation and nirvana is not possible. Renunciation is not removing something, as I always told them. Acceptance of everything, so that nothing has to be renounced. The total universe, acceptability of the universe is there, which is there, what is called renunciation. That's renunciation. Renunciation is not a process of throwing out something from me. Renunciation is that. Do a karma with a detachment is called, Bhagavan said in Bhagavad Gita, is called a renunciation. That's also renunciation. That's a true renunciation. Everything will be there in the world, in the universe. Thousands of things are there. You are not removing anything. You are trying to be yourself. That's all, the renunciation. The second type of vritti, so viparyayo mithya jnanam, the second type, so what happened? The false conception of an idea or object whose real nature does not conform to that concept. The true meaning of what I spoke could not be understood. The true meaning of the Vedanta could not be perceived by the disciple because of his unclean. Senses. So he says the second type of vritti, erroneous understanding, may also be based on a perception of an external object naturally. But in this case, the mental image does not correspond to the reality of that object. This may be caused by faulty perceptions, incorrect analysis of perception. See, that's through the intelligence. Or distortion of perception by the ego. This all we have explained already. Same thing. It is like the mirage in the desert, but is very common in daily life. Very often judgment is passed on a person or a situation when there is no relationship between reality and the mental impression. We are all experts in the judgment. We know everything. We immediately pass a judgment. He is like this, he is like that. Without any analysis. So what happened? This analysis takes distorted form of analysis. Takes place inside us because there is a distorted form of understanding vritti in you established. Through that distorted form of vritti, when you are taking a decision, the decision is distorted. That's it. It cannot be right at all. Always he will be saying same thing. You have seen some people? Repetitive of complaints, repetitive of problems, repetitive, same thing problem. Their problems will be repetitive from the childhood to now. The vritti is not, they are unable to clean that, they are unable to get rid of it. That Dhyanam is necessary. There's so many things are there. Kadacham is necessary, Ashirvadam, Anugraham is necessary, truth, Samarpana Bhava is necessary. These are all absolutely necessary, whether one believes it or not, immaterial. It's not Vedanta, or these things are not told to make somebody believe. No. As he said in the previous one, that whatever he speaks should be testimony is knowledge given by a person is unimpeachable character. He has had the direct experience himself. His words do not contradict the scriptures. Mankind and his experience must be such that it agrees with the men of wisdom. All these qualities will be there. It is not impress upon somebody he speaks. It is not educate somebody that he speaks. He speaks. If you want to get educated, get educated. It's not necessary that everybody has to believe it. No. One doesn't have faith, he doesn't believe. It's okay. It's according to his perception. Whether he wants to uplift himself or not, whether he wants to take care of it or not, it is up to him. Everybody has their own way. So, but what happens? Vedanta, when we are talking about Vedanta, when we are talking about Veda Upanishad, he says that your responsibility is to perceive that in the right sense. That is your responsibility. That's why you are born. That's why he said that every often judgment is passed on things, persons and events without the proper analysis. The analysis should be done through the absolute Dhyanam, through the highest consciousness. You will find no judgment can be passed on that. It all depends upon situations and circumstances. You are passing judgment based on your status of thinking. He is passing the judgment according to his status of thinking. A person who has done something is based on his purpose of thinking. Probably if you were there in his position, you would have done the same thing. But what happened when you are different from the other? You are seeing that as that judgment passed. That judgment passed will differ from the thought that a person who has done it, because of different vrittis are it. I don't say which is right, which is wrong. Because of the different vrittis are controlling each one depending upon their own status, they pass the judgment. That judgment should not be passed. It's not real, and the mental impressions are created. It's not right. Unless who has the authority to pass judgment? Who has the authority to pass the judgment? Who doesn't judge? Who witnesses it? He only can pass the judgment. The one who judges this is right and this is wrong. The one who witnesses through the highest consciousness, when he is witnessing it, he realizes what is the necessity. It's a very big chapter actually. It's, if you talk, so many things will come out. So beautiful again. So it's necessary to, through the process of Samarpana, Upasana, Nidhyasana, studies of Upanishadic and Vedic knowledge has to be, if it is possible, people who can afford to understand these things, they should understand this Dhyanam so that their vrittis are easily converted into that Sato and the Turiya Avastha. We can travel, transport ourselves, and easily one can attain the highest consciousness. Yes. Others, as a brahmachari or as a sannyasi, by just going and taking Vicham Dehi, and living in the particular standard of living, they will not attain the highest consciousness. They may be disciplined, fine. They may be a disciplined brahmachari, fine. They may be a disciplined sannyasi, fine. He is not a Brahma Sakshatkari. But the purpose of Vedanta, all these Upanishads are making one into the true Brahma Sakshatkari and Brahmajnani. That's the purpose what we are talking about. It is all based on that, the erroneous understanding, the false perception, the cleanliness, purity, formation, all these are talked based on that particular principle. Otherwise, one can refute to this erroneous understanding. He can say understanding itself is through the Shabdartham, is understanding through the intelligence is understanding. Here we have already spoken in the beginning itself, and also in the other Upanishad, that Vedanta and Vedanta and Upanishads are not to be understood. It has to be perceived. Let it seep into you. Then only the true experiencing can be done. Otherwise there will be only Shabdartham will be there, XYZ, that's all. Shabdartham. That will never be correct. That will not give this. It can draw an inference, of course, but it will never be correct. So that's all. That's the 9th shloka. We will take it the next class. Maybe we'll finish faster. Om Shanti.